Hi everyone. So for this week's genogram assignment, I know we're discussing how I would complete approaching this assignment with a client. I've actually used them with my clients before. I find they're most beneficial when the presenting issue is something to do with family relationships, whether it's family therapy, and that's actually the whole point of what we're discussing, or even if it's just a client who's struggling with a family issue or a family dynamics problem. For example, I spent many years as a parole officer, and there were a lot of strained family relationships when a client comes home from a lengthy incarceration, especially if the family, maybe there were family members that were still involved in criminal activity, or family members that were not willing to engage with him since he was involved with criminal activity. Those would be examples of when I've used it before. But really, any family dynamic problem, whether you're working with a single client in individual therapy or a family therapy client. I did mention in my written part that there are some adjustments I would make for certain populations. For example, with a child or somebody who's not fully literate, you might want to complete the assignment together, propose it as a project you're going to work on together, and that way you can take the load on writing the symbols or drawing the actual map, and have the person more orally identify these relationships and the people involved, special factors and things like that. Another population that falls into the same category, I would say, if the person has low cognitive functioning, very serious mental health issues, they might be able to identify family members but have a more difficult time with certain parts of it, like identifying other factors. I think when I drew mine, I included everything from different ethnic backgrounds to major life events that occurred during their life that were impactful for them. Obviously my husband and I lived through 9/11. My parents lived through much more, and the Vietnam War and things like that. So those are details that you wouldn't necessarily go into if they weren't important to the scope of the problem or helpful in understanding how the relationship is affected by these scenarios, like it mentioned in the trauma focused genogram, where you'd include that. So I would propose this as an idea at the beginning of therapy for 1 or 2 sessions in. Say, I'd like to get a better understanding of who your family is. When you speak of your family, what people does that include? What are your relationships with them, and what are everybody's relationships with each other? And build it together from there. Maybe show them examples of how it would work, and give ideas for what would be important elements to include. So thank you very much. Talk to you soon.